Alrighty, for this Memorial Day weekend, decided to pull out this 6 horsepower stover and get it finished and running and ready for the show season. I hope to take it to a couple local engine shows this year. Picked it up last fall sometime. It's a 1929 6 horsepower Stover K. Overall, it's in pretty decent shape. It was painted at some point. Judging by the looks of it, probably 20 or so years ago. Been doing a lot of work to this engine over the past few weeks. Pulled the engine off of the base, removed the fuel tank, drained about 3 or 4 gallons worth of really bad smelling gas out of there. Cleaned the tank out. It was a nice heavy wall galvanized tank, which I think is original, and so that cleaned up pretty well. The engine was pretty much the condition that you see it in when I bought it. The only problem was it was missing the correct carburetor. Somebody had put I don't even know what kind of mixer or carburetor was on it, but it wasn't the correct one for this engine. But this one right here is, and with some help from a friend, was able to locate this, which is made out of new old stock Stover parts. It's the correct mixer for this engine. It's an overflow type mixer, meaning that the engine has a fuel pump. The engine pumps fuel from the main tank, and there's another line that would go into the bottom of the carburetor mixer, and the fuel pump would fill up this tank right here, this bowl, to about this level right here, and this is the overflow or return line back to the fuel tank. So that maintains a constant level in this mixer, which really these engines run pretty well, anything with this type of carburetor, because the needle valve, that's all it is. It just has a needle valve for adjustment. It maintains a steady level, so you don't have to worry about, okay, well, keeping an eye on the mixture or the choke or anything like that, because it never really varies, being that the level is always the same. Works similar to like an International Harvester Type M engine. Same kind of fuel pump overflow mixer carburetor setup. So, like I said, I have to make the feed line yet for that from the fuel pump and make a little cap. This is like a priming hole right here. You can fill this bowl up if you wanted to. A little lid that would sit in there. But anyway, the next thing that I really have to work on with this engine is the fuel pump, which mounts back here on these 2 bolts here, and is actuated by this lever right here, which has a roller that rides on the cam. And here's the fuel pump body right here. It's a bronze fuel pump, just a little plunger type pump. Got 2 check valves in it, check balls. But the plunger and the gland nut up top were missing when I bought it, so there's an internal spring here, which I believe is original, which pushes the plunger back up when the lever pushes it down from the cam. So I've got to make that plunger, and I've got to make that gland nut, which would seal it up. So once I make those 2 components there, this engine should be ready to run. So I'll catch up with you guys after I do that. Alright, so I'm working on the fuel pump for that 6 horsepower Stover. Here's the main body of the pump. Just finished making a new plunger for it, because the plunger was actually missing when I bought the engine. So I just I mounted the pump on the block and took some measurements. Checked what kind of stroke that the lever arm actually has for the pump, and came up with this here. It's hollowed up most of the way up to about here, because this spring, which I believe is original, fits inside it. This fits inside of the plunger, like that. That sits inside there, and sorry, one-handed here. That fits inside the body of the pump there, and the lever arm acts on it. So it's a pretty good fit. It's a little stiff yet. I think after a little bit of running and of course some oil, it's dry right now. Not oil, and then the actual fuel itself is going to lubricate it a little bit. It'll free up and move pretty well. Of course, I wanted it to seal well too, so you can't have too much clearance in it. But now I have to make the gland nut, or the nut, or the packing nut, which threads onto the top here, and then you would wrap like a graphite rope in this area, tighten the nut and compress that a little bit, and that would actually act as the seal to keep the pump from leaking, and that would also hold oil and provide a little bit of lubrication for the piston here. I've got this chunk of brass that I've had sitting around for a number of years. Used it for a couple things. Used it as a press block and all kinds of things over the years, but I think I'm going to put it on the lathe and turn out the new gland nut for this fuel pump. These threads, I just checked them real quick. It's an 1 3/16 diameter and 16 threads per inch. So I've got to make that. It's going to be not very tall, just enough to get on there about halfway down and have a little gap up top and a little taper on it to hold the pump packing. So I'm going to go ahead and start working on that, and I'll keep you updated. Alright, well, we're still working on the fuel pump for the Stover engine. Just finished a little bit of single point threading action on the old South Bend lathe here. I think I mentioned before that the threads for this fuel pump nut are 1 3/16 16, which thread that I've never encountered before. Let me see if I can thread this without dropping it. There we go. This is the first set of internal threads I've cut on this lathe. Oops, sorry. That came out pretty well, I think. Using a little Williams boring bar here. See, it's a kind of a small bar for this tool post. Had to shim it up a little bit. But the threads fit on there nicely. I threaded it deeper than it's ultimately going to be. I think I'm going to end up facing off about 3/16, losing about 3/16 of the threads here, because it's only going to thread in about that far instead of all the way up. But yeah, now I'll just turn the outer diameter down, because there's a pipe plug that goes in this hole right here, this small one, so I'll need side clearance there, and that wall thickness is just a bit too much for that. So I'm going to keep working on it. Thanks for watching. Alright, well, here's what I ended up with for the Stover 6 horsepower Stover's fuel pump. I think you already saw the plunger here. I just completed the gland nut, or the packing nut, so I'll give you a look at that. Plunger down. I think I already said this is a 1 3/16 16 thread. Just made of brass. So I'm pretty happy with the way that turned out. A little blemish right there and right there where the parting tool grabbed it as I was cutting the excess off, but I can just face that off and it'll look fine. But so anyway, there was originally like a graphite impregnated piece of rope in here that this nut would have compressed against the plunger here to seal it. So I'm going to do the same thing. What I usually do is just get a piece of cotton twine, soak it in grease, and again get like graphite powder in a little plastic tube that you use for locks and things. Mix that in and just mush that into the rope, and then put the well, in this case it might be a little bit difficult with this one because you'll have to put the gland nut on the plunger, put the plunger in like that, and then wind the rope around the plunger, and then thread on the packing nut, which should work just fine. I've already mounted this on the engine just to verify that I had enough clearance between the block and the mounting flange here, because there's not much, and there is just enough to allow the packing nut to spin, and the lever arm travel for the plunger, it appears to be correct. So the next video you should see will be this mounted on the engine and the engine running. So thanks a lot for watching, and remember, it's Memorial Day, so keep that in mind.